The iron bell was still echoing, as the crowd slowly came back to life. Voices rose again, low at first, then louder. Men leaned toward each other, whispering behind half-hidden smiles. Some laughed. Others simply watched, with the quiet satisfaction of people who believed they had already figured everything out. Edward Hale didn't look at any of them. He stepped forward through the crowd, steady, composed, as if none of it touched him. But it did. Every sound, every word, every assumption. He could feel it following him, like heat against his back. Up on the platform, the three girls hadn't moved. Their wrists were still marked by iron. Their eyes followed him, carefully, not with hope, not yet. They had seen too much, trusted too little. The eldest stood slightly in front of the other two. Her shoulders were tense. Her chin lifted just enough to hide the fear in her eyes. She was protecting them. Even now. Edward stopped a few steps away. For a brief moment, no one spoke. Not the auctioneer. Not the guards. Not the crowd. Then Edward did something that made several men in the yard frown. He spoke directly to the girls. Not about them. To them. "My name is Edward Hale." His voice was quiet, but steady. "You're coming with me." No orders. No shouting. No threats. Just a statement. The youngest girl tightened her grip on her sister's hand. The middle one glanced at the ground, then back at him, trying to read him, trying to understand. The eldest said nothing, but her eyes stayed locked on his face, watching for the truth, or the lie. Behind them, the auctioneer cleared his throat, loudly, breaking the moment. "Payment within the hour, Mr. Hale." Edward nodded once, without turning. "It'll be done." He stepped back, already turning away, because he knew something the others didn't. This wasn't over. Not even close. Across the yard, Victor Kane was watching, arms crossed, expression cold. He hadn't spoken after the final bid, hadn't argued, hadn't raised his hand again. But his eyes followed Edward now, sharp, calculating. He had lost the auction, but not the game. And men like Victor Kane didn't forget. They waited. Edward felt it, didn't look back, didn't slow down. But he knew. Buying those three girls had just made him an enemy. And somewhere behind him, as the chains were finally unlocked, three sisters stepped off that platform, and into a future none of them could yet understand. The wagon left Charleston slowly, wheels grinding over the dry dirt road. No one followed, but the feeling of being watched didn't fade. Edward kept his eyes forward, hands steady on the reins. He didn't speak, not once. Behind him, the three sisters sat close together in the back of the wagon, closer than they needed to, but not close enough to feel safe. The youngest, Sarah, held onto a small cloth bundle in her lap. Everything she owned, tied inside it. Her fingers never let go. Naomi sat beside her, eyes moving constantly, watching the road, the trees, Edward's back, measuring distance, calculating escape. But there was nowhere to run. Not here. Not now. Eliza, the eldest, said nothing. She hadn't spoken since the auction. But her eyes never left Edward. Not trusting. Not fearing. Not yet. Just waiting. The road stretched on for miles. Fields. Trees. Empty land that seemed to swallow sound. After nearly an hour, Sarah finally whispered, "Where is he taking us?" Naomi didn't answer right away, because she already knew the truth. "It doesn't matter," she said quietly. "We stay together." Eliza's voice came next, low, firm. "If anything happens, we don't separate." Sarah nodded quickly, eyes already filling. Up front, Edward heard every word. But he didn't turn around, because there was nothing he could say that they would believe. Not yet. The sun began to drop, casting long shadows across the road. The air grew heavier, quieter. Then finally, the wagon turned. Off the main path, into a narrow road, lined with tall trees that blocked out the fading light. Naomi noticed first. Her body stiffened. This isn't the main road. No answer. The wagon kept moving. Deeper. Further away from everything. Sarah's breathing grew faster. Eliza. I know. Eliza's eyes locked onto Edward's back again. This time, different. Now there was fear. Real fear. Because this was how it always happened. Isolation. Silence. No witnesses. The wagon rolled to a stop. Edward climbed down, slowly, still not saying a word. He walked to the side, and opened the back. For a moment, no one moved. Then he spoke. You can step down. Not a command. Not harsh. But it didn't matter. Eliza moved first. Always first. She stepped down, placing herself between him and her sisters. Naomi followed. Then Sarah, hesitating just a second longer. They stood together, waiting. And then they saw it. The house. Not large. Not grand. But clean. Quiet. Still. No guards. No noise. No movement. Just a house, sitting alone in the fading light. Something about it felt wrong. Not because it looked dangerous, but because it didn't. Edward turned toward them. For the first time since the auction, fully facing them. This is Willow Creek, he said. A pause. Longer this time. You'll be staying here. The three sisters exchanged a look. Confusion. Suspicion. Disbelief. Because nothing about this made sense. And deep down, they all knew. Whatever was about to happen next would decide everything. For a few seconds, no one moved. The wind passed through the trees. Soft, almost quiet enough to hear their breathing. Edward stepped aside, giving them space, not closer, not forcing. You can come inside, he said. Still not a command. That alone felt wrong. Eliza didn't move. Her eyes stayed on him, watching, waiting. Why? She asked. It was the first word she had spoken since the auction. Edward didn't answer right away, because there wasn't a simple answer. Finally, he said, because you shouldn't be out here. That was it. No explanation. No condition. Naomi frowned slightly. That made even less sense. Eliza hesitated, then stepped forward, not trusting him, just choosing the option that gave them the most control. The other two followed close behind. Inside, the air felt different, cooler, still. The house was simple, but clean. Wood floors, a small table, shelves with books. Sarah noticed them first. Her eyes lingered. Because people like them weren't supposed to read. Naomi's attention moved elsewhere. The doors, the windows, no locks. Or at least, none that she could see. Eliza stayed focused on Edward, always, waiting for the moment everything changed. But it didn't. Instead, Edward turned toward the hallway. There are rooms upstairs, he said, separate. Another pause. You can choose whichever you want. Silence. The words didn't land, not at first. Because they didn't fit anything the sisters had ever known. Rooms? Sarah whispered. Edward nodded once. No one moved. Naomi looked at Eliza. Eliza didn't answer. Because this felt like something else. Not kindness. Something harder to understand. A trap, maybe. Or something worse. Edward noticed the hesitation, the fear. He stepped back. Further this time. "I'll be outside," he said. And just like that, he walked out. The door closed behind him, softly. The three sisters stood frozen in the middle of the room. No chains, no guards, no orders. Just silence. Sarah was the first to speak. "Is this real?" Naomi shook her head slowly. "No." Eliza didn't answer. She moved toward the stairs. Slowly, carefully. Every step, measured. She reached the top, and pushed open the first door. Inside, a bed, clean sheets, a window, water. No locks. No restraints. Nothing. She checked the second room, then the third. All the same. Eliza stood there, trying to understand, because in her entire life, nothing like this had ever happened. Downstairs, Naomi and Sarah waited. "Are they real?" Sarah called softly. Eliza took a long breath, then answered, "Yes." Another pause, longer this time. "But that doesn't mean we're safe." Outside, Edward stood in the fading light, hands still, eyes distant. He knew exactly what they were thinking, and he also knew, this was the easy part. The hard part hadn't even begun yet. Night came slowly over Willow Creek. The house stayed quiet, too quiet. No footsteps, no doors opening, no voices calling them down. Nothing. Upstairs, the three sisters remained in the same room. Together. Always together. They hadn't touched the beds. Hadn't changed. Hadn't relaxed. Because they were still waiting. Waiting for the moment everything would turn. It always did. Hours passed. The light outside faded, then disappeared completely. Sarah's voice broke the silence. "What if? He's waiting." Naomi looked toward the door. "He is." Eliza didn't speak, but her eyes moved, slowly, toward the window. Something felt wrong. Not inside the house. Outside. Then, a sound. Distant at first. Hoofbeats. All three of them froze. Naomi moved to the window. Just enough to see through the curtain. Her breath caught. "There's someone out there." Eliza stepped beside her. Carefully. Through the darkness. They could see it. Lantern light. Moving. More than one rider. Sarah's voice trembled. "Are they for us?" Eliza didn't answer. Because deep down, she already knew. Outside, Edward was still standing near the porch. Waiting. He had heard them too. The riders slowed as they approached the house. No hurry. No fear. Like men who believed. They had every right to be there. A voice cut through the dark. Loud. Confident. "Edward Hale." Eliza stiffened. She recognized that tone. Not from memory. From instinct. Danger. Edward didn't move right away. Then finally, he stepped forward into the light. "I know it's you." The voice continued. "You think you can just walk away with what's mine." Naomi's grip tightened on the window frame. "Victor," she whispered. Down below, Edward's voice was calm. Too calm. "They were never yours." A short laugh echoed in the night. "Cold. That's not how this works." Lantern light lifted, revealing faces. 3 men. Armed. Victor Kane stepped forward. Smile thin. Eyes sharp. "You overpaid," he said. "But I'm willing to be reasonable." A pause. "Sell them to me." Silence. Upstairs. Sarah shook her head. "No. No." Naomi didn't move. Didn't breathe. Eliza's eyes locked on Edward below. Because this was the moment. The truth. Why he bought them. What he would choose. Money. Power. Safety. Or them. Edward didn't answer right away. Victor took another step forward. "You don't want trouble," he said quietly. "You're not built for it." Another pause. Longer. Heavier. Then Edward spoke. No. Just one word. But it changed everything. Victor's smile disappeared. The air shifted. Because now, this wasn't business anymore. This was a problem. And men like Victor Kane didn't walk away from problems. Upstairs, Eliza stepped back from the window. Her voice was low, steady. It's starting. For a moment, no one moved. The night held still, like it was waiting. Victor's eyes hardened. "You're making a mistake," he said. Edward didn't respond. He didn't step back, didn't raise his voice, but he didn't move aside either. And that was enough. Victor studied him for a long second. Then, slowly, he smiled again, not amused. "Warning. This isn't over," he said quietly. Then he turned, mounted his horse. The others followed. Lantern light fading, step by step, into the darkness. But the silence they left behind felt heavier than before. Upstairs, Sarah let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. "Is it over?" she whispered. Naomi shook her head. No. Eliza didn't speak, because she understood something now. That man out there wasn't the only danger. This place, this house, this man was something else entirely. A risk, a choice. Downstairs, the door opened. Edward stepped back inside. He didn't look up right away, didn't call for them. Instead, he stood there, still, like a man who knew the next words mattered. Finally, he spoke. You heard him. A pause. They will come back. Upstairs, the sisters listened. Every word. And next time, he continued, they won't ask. Silence. Then, something changed. Edward looked up. Not at the stairs, not at the walls, but as if he already knew they were listening. I didn't bring you here to hide. Another pause. I brought you here because I can't do this alone. That landed differently. Not like an order, not like a promise, like something else. An invitation. Eliza moved first, slowly, down the stairs. Naomi and Sarah followed. They stopped a few steps away from him. Not too close. Not too far. Eliza's voice was steady. What are you trying to do? Edward met her eyes. No hesitation now. Get people out. A pause. Quietly. Carefully. Before men like him find them first. Naomi frowned. You mean... run. Edward nodded once. North. The word hung in the air. Heavy. Impossible. Sarah shook her head. That's not real. It is, Edward said. I've seen it. I have contacts. Safe places. People who help. Eliza studied him. Longer this time. Deeper. Then why us? She asked. Another pause. Edward's voice dropped. Softer now. Because you were about to disappear. Not just into slavery. Into something worse. Silence. And because, he added, you looked like you wouldn't break. That hit. Eliza didn't react. Not outside. But something shifted. Naomi crossed her arms. Suspicious. Still. And what do you get out of this? Edward didn't answer immediately. Because there wasn't a clean answer. Finally, he said. Less than I deserve. Another pause. More than doing nothing. The room fell quiet again. Not tense. Not afraid. Thinking. Outside. The night stretched on. Inside. Something else was beginning. Not trust. Not yet. But something close. a decision, a direction, and far beyond Willow Creek, beyond the trees, beyond the roads watched by men like Victor Kane, there was a place none of them had ever seen. Freedom. And whether they believed it or not, they had just taken the first step toward it.